back to Nakasuchi. I'm your boy. We should have a pretty good conversation tonight. We are talking Trump. Have a pretty good panel. If my last panelist doesn't show up, I'm going to send the link to Barney. But we're waiting to hear from the last guest. But I'm going to kick it over to the moderator tonight, which is Allie, and she's going to get us going.
Wolf just said he just got home and he'll be here in a few minutes, I guess.
All right, cool. Awesome. But yeah,
Hey,
go
guys.
ahead, Allie.
Hey guys, what's up? So I'm moderating tonight, which is interesting because we're actually talking about something from my side of YouTube, or at least where I started. I guess I've got a foot on both sides now with both Collective View and Polyology. But we're going to be talking about some current events, like the Trump presidency as a whole, the good and the bad that he may or may not have done. And, you know, some of the recent stories, like him talking about wanting to bomb a hurricane, you know, the interesting commentary that's kind of circled around that kind of good stuff. So, yeah, you know, things that are totally not controversial at all. We've got a very interesting panel lined up as well, including somebody that I've only ever talked to on Discord. So I will let the introduction start from my right. Carlton, why don't you go ahead and start with some sort of opening statement, I guess, how you feel about the administration so far, any sort of current events you're interested in, introduce yourself, maybe talk about a channel if you got one.
Yeah, sure. My name is Carlton. I recently did a video on why I'm an atheist. That was back in July now. Working on a current video that I don't really want to talk about right now. But yeah, as far as the Trump administration, I have several opinions. I could go on for like 17 hours on the many things I have to say. But that's it, I guess, for an opening statement. I just want to wait until the actual discussion starts.
All right, fair enough. All right, so Callan, you are not new to the channel per se, but you've been having some fairly interesting discussions on this topic as of late. So I'd love to hear if you have an opening statement, a very general thing about your opinion on the administration, or a current event that you'd like us to talk about over the course of the discussion, or something along those lines.
Sure. One of the things I find interesting is that they talk about affirmative action all the time, but but if that's the case, then we have an affirmative action in chief, because Trump is useless in pretty much every aspect. Yet he's there because he's just an old senile man. So, white affirmative action? Yeah, totally. It's totally a thing.
All right, and AR, a perennial friend of the channel.
Ooh, so the Trump administration, honestly, I have lots and lots of gripes from him calling people seeking asylum foreign invaders, which not only fuels racism across the country, but also inspires right-wing terrorism. We also have a lot of policy plans that he's enacted that have targeted trans people that, for instance, removes their ability to seek shelter if they're homeless, or doesn't allow them to participate in the military voluntarily. There's so many things, but those are my main two gripes. I'm sure we'll get into more later.
All right, so we are actually waiting at the moment for our last guest. He just got home from work and he said that he'll be here shortly, but Wolf the Red, also from Polyology and a good friend to both the server and Naka and Ocean and myself, he will be here fairly shortly. So Naka, you said that you wanted to open up with a particular topic of discussion, so I'll let you take this. As per usual, I'll cut in if I feel like I've got something to say, or if I feel like people are getting into arguments. We've got a pretty calm panel tonight, so I think it'll be pretty easy.
Yeah, so do I. As usual, I'm terrible with my links. I even 10 minutes before the stream started was like, I'm gonna go put the links in, everybody, and then we started talking politics, and I didn't do it. So after the stream, I definitely will get the links in. I know Carlton has a channel now. We'll put in the Polyology link and AR's link, so y'all can go and subscribe to them if you haven't subscribed to them all. Carlton's video, the one he talked about, is really good. You should go watch it. It's really good. I enjoyed it. But yeah, I wanted to start the conversation kind of based on a little inspiration from Discord before, because we were having a conversation in Discord, and some were piping in that Trump has done some good, and I'm a policy nerd, so I'm of course I'm like, I really don't see how Trump has done any good, but I wanted to open it up, and I know like the one person that is going to kind of maybe be a little bit more opposing to our views on this isn't here yet, but I still would like to hear, can we come up with any good things from Trump? Like, so for me, immediately was Trump's rejection of the TPP. I thought that was a great thing for the country. I stood against it. I was a Bernie supporter. I kind of feel like Trump stole that from Bernie, but he did it. And then he started a trade war with China. And I'm like, I'm not sure if this is much better. So I'm not even sure if I can really count that as a good thing anymore. So I'd like to hear from everybody. Like, can you guys come up with anything good that Trump has done? I'm assuming that we're probably mostly leaning left on the panel.
So I'm kind of snarky, but he mobilized a lot of the left to vote. So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah, that would be like my ultimate good things was he's mobilized the left. He's shown us the true face of what I would say the true face of conservatism in this country. There's no more hiding anymore after Trump for conservatives, I don't believe. I would consider that a good thing. But policy-wise, has there been any policy that anybody can think of that would necessarily be considered a good thing?
I mean, if you're extremely rich, you benefited a lot from the tax cuts. Like, you probably got enough money to buy another yacht now.
I would say that Trump has brought us a step closer to the revolution.
I literally can't think of a single policy position that I'm aware of that's been good in any way.
Yeah, me either. Like, I know my dad would say the tax cuts because my dad isn't a poor dude, right? So he probably did benefit from the tax cuts. But I think even most people that, at least most people that understand economics and the cycles of economics in this country understand that this golden surge that has been happening for about the last 3 or 4 years, before Trump and definitely during Trump, is about to end. So, the tax cuts, I think, is going to be an ultimate fail. I mean, just because it's trickle down, and trickle down always seems to fail.
I mean, this is only anecdotal. I haven't seen any like statistics or anything on it, but
most economists I've talked to about this, they all say that trickle down economics is doomed to fail.
Always.
I haven't seen the mathematical reasoning behind it, but that's what they've said, and they know more than me about economics.
One thing I can say though is that like Trump said at one point that his tax cuts would like bring bigger refunds to people in the working class. However, and like I said, I don't have like actual statistics, but the people that I've worked with and the people that I know here in like real life, all of us received demonstrably lower refunds than what we're used to.
Yeah, that's been the case here in Michigan as well. I think for most people is that the refunds have been lower. I think the argument that they give is, well, your paychecks are bigger, and I haven't really seen any data that would indicate whether that's true or false. I think some people's paychecks are bigger, and I think others are smaller.
Well, part of the problem was that the IRS under the Trump administration did not get instructions for employers out fast enough for the first year for withholdings to change. So the employers kind of had to guess based off of preliminary information how much to withhold. So a lot of people got way smaller refunds. And they had plenty taken out of their stuff. Some people end up actually owing because their employers were not given any sort of guidance. Nothing was issued for almost 6 months, I think it was, like officially for accountants and stuff to fix that shit. So like a number of problems were stemmed from just how hastily this tax plan was rolled out. They kind of forced it through because they knew they were going to lose the House.
Yeah, and let's remember his promise for the tax plan. So this tax plan was going to be so simple that you could file your taxes on an index card. Or like he literally said that shit. And they're not. I mean, I don't think anybody can argue that he simplified the tax code. I mean, he fucked the tax code up. I don't think
sure the poor get poorer. Yeah, that is very simple.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it seems to be. So So we don't have the more moderate voice here yet. So we'll let Wolf answer that. Maybe Wolf could educate us on a few things that he's seen it as being good. But we'll move on. I I can't. I kind of came up with
Okay,
a
so
strategy,
there's
but
one
basically,
thing.
Ali, all I'm going by is the title, so we can just go right down the list of the title.
So here's the there's one other thing that you might consider good. I don't know if it depending on how annoying you find Amber Alerts and stuff on your phone. Back in June, Trump actually instituted a new FCC emergency alert for missing police officers that has been rolled out in 27 states so far, but is supposed to be expected to be nationwide by the end of the year. So, I mean, I guess if you consider that to be a positive thing, hey, look, Wolf is here.
Hey, Wolf.
Hey, what's up, Wolf?
So we did all of our introductions earlier, Wolf. I know you just came in, but like, if you want to give a quick introduction and stuff, and do a opening statement about a topic you'd like to hear covered, or right now we're trying to find positive things that the Trump administration has done before the bloodbath starts. So if you'd like to say any of those, that you'd be welcome to do so now as well.
Ooh, echo. I don't know whose that's coming from though.
I'm not sure if Wolf hears us.
Hold on 1 second. I'm having a little bit of issues. Let me stop for just a second, and I'll be right back.
All right.
All right. Yay, the pagan tech curse strikes again. But yeah, that blue alert, I think, is the closest thing to something that most of us might agree might be positive. Because, like missing police officers and stuff.
Yeah, and I would say he has put a lot of resources into police officers. Now there are a lot of things that I actually dislike about that. I think that if we're going to put resources into police, we should most of those resources I think should be toward
criminologist. I have a
training.
ton to say about that.
All right, yeah. So I just think that it should be spent primarily on more training and not necessarily better, more militaristic police forces. But I will say, he has poured a lot of resources into the police departments, and I do think that overall is not something that anybody should really argue against.
Yeah, coming from a military family, one of, my stepdad, he was a piece of work in a number of areas, but there's one thing that I did agree with him on, and that's that police officers do not get the kind of training that the military does in terms of if you're going to point your fucking gun, you better be ready to pull the trigger. They have a very fear-based training method where the vast majority of the time in most police departments, you're taught shoot first, think later type thing. And
I think we need to get back out of that. I would love to see police forces go back to more of a community policing, get involved with communities, know the communities again, walk the beat again. I think that's really missing.
What I was trying to say was that police officers with access to military surplus don't have the kind of training they need to not cause massive damage with said surplus. I can understand putting that gun in the hands of a soldier who's had that sort of training and such, and isn't going to use it outside of their line of duty per se. As much as I love the individual police officers, some of them that I know, putting military surplus in the hands of not properly trained police officers can be quite risky.
Yeah,
Militarization of the police is a huge issue, and it's not good. Not a good trend at all. It does not serve the justice system. It only serves oppression and basically non-rehabilitative practices.
All right.
Callan, you're a bit low. I'm going to try to turn you up.
It sounded like Wolf was going to come in.
Yeah, go ahead, Wolf. Callan was speaking, but she was really low. I'm not sure if I can actually turn her up. But Wolf. If you wanted to come in, you can.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing tonight?
What's up, man?
Well, I'm Wolf the Red. I might be the farthest right-leaning person in the room, and I say that very hesitantly. As most of you know, I'm very socially left. I help run multiple Discord servers that promote LGBTQ rights, trans rights, try to make a safe place for everybody to be themselves and stuff like that. So I'm not a conservative asshole. So if you're worried about that, that's not me. But I've dealt with a lot of uh, I've dealt with a lot of pushback because I do support some of the things that Trump has done through the years financially, and this is only specifically for me. I understand that he has screwed over a lot of other people out in the world. When I speak about the things that are good, they are the things that have impacted me directly. A lot of his trade deals have pushed the industry that I work in, and it has exploded my bank account over the last few years, and I really can't ignore that, and I can't ignore the positive impact it has had on my family.
For what it's worth, it's actually kind of hurt ours a bit. A lot of the pissed offedness that he's caused with certain countries have actually impacted my husband. He builds planes for a living. So the particular model of plane that he is working on, we've actually had either canceled orders or orders that didn't happen.
Yep.
Because of his bullshit that he has caused with certain other countries.
Yep.
And there was some concern about whether the line would be able to continue at one point because of that. So, like, we've been hit kind of on the converse.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I agree with the bad that he's done. Nobody can ignore the harm that he's done to the country and to the world at whole. All these trade deals, all these fights that he's gotten into because of his ego. I definitely don't support Trump as a person, but I can't ignore the positive that has impacted me directly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only real reason I agreed to come on, because I feel like I'm the only one that he may have impacted positively.
Yeah, well, and for what it's worth, I wasn't trying to shut you down with that.
No,
like, I was just replying with our side a little bit.
No, that's good. We need to be talking about this stuff. We need to be showing the harm that a president can do to the individuals. I mean, we're the ones voting. We're the ones putting these people in office or keeping them out of office. We need to be talking about the issues that they are, causing the American people.
Yeah, and we shouldn't really ignore those success stories either. You know, like I've always said, like, vote for your personal benefit. I hate it when people don't. I hate it when people vote just for their team and not really what has or is going to make their lives better. And in that specific circumstance, I could totally see that, because I do know for a fact that some industries have directly benefited from the trade war. And if you're in one of those industries, I really can't fault you for at least supporting that. Because like you said, like, your family's life has been changed for the better. Why would you not appreciate that?
Yeah, I went from being $30,000 in debt to having zero debt at all, and I bought a motorcycle with cash this year. And it all happened within like the last 2 years. And it was all because of his policies and the work that he's thrown my company and the tax breaks, and my paycheck has damn near tripled, and it's been riding the success train for me and the people that I work with. My company employs, I'm not going to name my company, but my company employs a little over 7,000 people across pretty much the world. But we've probably got about 4,000 or 5,000 people local where I am, and we've all just been working, and we're glad to do it. Nobody's mad at the work, because it could very easily dry up, and then we won't have anything to do.
And truth be told, you know, if Trump loses, everything's going to change.
Exactly.
So, you know, you very well could dry up sooner than later if he loses.
So I want to give Carlton a chance to come in if they would like to, just because you kind of had to go for a moment. So do you have anything that you'd like to say on the topic before we move on?
Well, what I was going to say is I immediately thought of kind of a good thing that the administration had signed into law, which was the First Step Act. Now, it's barely a Band-Aid, but it's at least something in regards to going after prison reform, which someone of my particular skin pigmentation would be particularly affected by.
Yeah. I'm not too familiar with that policy. I do remember reading it, and I don't think I had any issues with it. I did kind of see it as a band-aid, but at least it was something.
Can you
So yeah, I
go
think
into
I'd
it a
agree.
little bit more, Carlton? Do you mind?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Can you go into that a little bit more? Do you mind going into it a little bit more?
Sure. The First Step Act is supposed to at least reduce recidivism rates for repeat offenders and things of that nature. It also, I guess, tends to improve if prison environments can be improved. It sort of works to minimize that and make prison, I guess, more enjoyable, so it seems more profitable. At least that's my interpretation of it. But it's at least for the most part supposed to reduce recidivism rates, because if anyone knows anything about the prison system here in the United States, our recidivism rate is a little
Our prison system sucks.
oofy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have
You put
one of the
people in
highest.
metal cages and expect them to get better.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
makes
the for-profit prisons are garbage.
our slavery.
Absolutely.
That would fix a lot of the prison issues that we have. Is stop making them for profit. Stop letting CEOs make money off of. I mean, it's literally indentured servitude at this point, because they can then take the people that they've incarcerated and turn them into employees, give them like $1 a day and make them feel like they're earning a wage while they're out there doing work that someone else might get paid to do $30 an hour to do.
Oh yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
even indentured servitude. Indentured servitude generally
It's
involves
just
like
outright
actual
slavery.
contracts. Like
Yeah,
the
that's true.
U.S. Constitution actually only bars slavery in all cases but prisons. So, like, the Constitution outright calls what we do to prisoners slavery and makes special exemptions for it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal example of this. I've spoken plainly about going to prison as a teenager. They put us on the road crews in North Carolina, so we built the roads, and all the stadies would be in their trucks, smoking their cigarettes, smoking their weed, while we were building the roads for them. And I made $2.86 a week doing a job that they were probably getting paid at least $20 an hour for back then at that time. So yeah, I mean, I considered it slavery. It felt like I was a slave. I didn't have a choice in it.
Right.
I had to do it.
It's like the money they give you only benefits them as well. Like,
it was enough to buy a
you
pack
get-
of cigarettes, because
Yeah.
you got a cheaper pack of cigarettes in prison, but it was one pack.
I thought everything was like raised in price in
Well,
prisons. Like
this
even
was
like
North
top
Carolina.
ramen would cost.
This is
way
North
more
Carolina,
than
and
it
I'm
would
not
at a
sure if it's
grocery
still
store.
like that. But in North Carolina back then, it's Tobaccoville, America. So yeah, cigarettes were
Okay.
pretty cheap.
We can't even talk
they-
about the
they
prison
call us the
systems
Tar Heel
without
State
like.
for a reason.
Can't really
Well,
talk
I
about the
went and
prison.
did a. Go on.
So you can't really talk about the prison systems without like mentioning the fact that it disproportionately affects like people of color. Also, the fact that like most of the people that are in prisons are in for like nonviolent drug offenses.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah, the war
kind
on
of a big
drugs has
problem
got to
as well.
stop.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why decriminalization is such an important thing.
It really is.
It's actually kind of funny.
Portugal actually has a system like that where
I'm not
treated-
surprised. I'm not surprised your CEOs were like smoking weed while they were watching you, making sure you guys do work either.
Right?
Yeah, it happened all the time. But Callan was trying to jump in. She's still
go ahead,
really low. Go ahead, Callan.
So Portugal actually has a system like that where instead of treating it as a criminal offense, they treat it as a mental health issue, and that has done a lot more for them. Switzerland also used somewhat of a similar program, except they did it with heroin, where they would actually provide high quality heroin to addicts, so that way they could taper them off eventually.
Not
That
just
also
that, they
proved
also
successful. And
they
that
also offer
proved
you like
successful.
they also offer you like untampered with like pure high quality like heroin, not something that might be cut with something else that's dangerous.
Yeah, no,
something
yeah,
that's
that's
like
my point.
made in a way that's like safe and might not have any like harmful chemicals that are attached to it. Like
Aside from heroin.
If I
Yeah.
recall,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly,
Yeah.
Switzerland also it was one of the Scandinavian countries specifically will only go after the dealers. Like using is not a crime there, but distributing is. And so like it's one of the Scandinavian countries that does that.
I know Denmark just simply outright allows you to get opium.
Mhm.
You get it from vending machines.
Uh,
I've seen it.
But
I don't know
in
about
terms,
Norway or Sverige.
In terms of the prison system, though, I went and looked at the First Step Act, and apparently what it does is it bans the shackling of female prisoners who are pregnant. It allows for federal workers in federal prisons to store their firearms in like safe lockers within the prison itself. There is incentives that were created for using like getting involved in rehabilitation type programs or other programs of that nature. So things like the prison like college type programs that allow people to start working on an associate's degree or something while they're in school. If that program exists in your state, there's special incentives like extra time out or time off of work or things like that for actually getting involved. And there's another one that creates another federal program that the states have to adopt that gives prisoners an ID upon release so that they have one in order to be able to get a job.
Do they do anything to like give them is there anything for like job training in that though? Did I miss that?
That was the incentive for some of the trainings that are job training type or college type programs that already exist. There's additional incentives given to prisoners for making use of those programs if they exist in their states.
Okay.
Yeah, and back to
That is
the policy that Carlton originally mentioned, I think that it was a decent step. I mean, it wasn't the reform like the left was looking for, but it was more of a reform than any right wing policy was putting forward. I think that Trump did it because it was at the time. Prison reform was a very hot button topic at that particular time, but he did something. So I think that that is ultimately some good thing that we can give credit to Donald Trump for.
Well, it was, if I'm not mistaken, and Ali is your name, moderator. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was signed into law like late last year, if I'm not mistaken. Which,
Yeah, I think you're right.
yeah, if anyone remembers, there was also a really big thing going on late last year, like a certain sort of government shutdown that was happening as well.
Oh geez. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I forgot about that government
Yeah,
shutdown.
he shut down the government.
I completely forgot about it too.
Like, how the hell hasn't any of the Democratic nominees been talking about that yet? But oh yeah, I forgot about that.
They probably forgot about it too.
Well, let's be really, really honest. Some of them were involved in it, and some of them
Yeah.
are to blame.
Absolutely.
I really hate the idea that left versus right. When
Me too.
we can be really honest with ourselves. The left, the Democratic candidates, whatever you want to call them, they make just as many mistakes as the other side does.
Oh yeah, and sometimes they're even more atrocious mistakes because they go against themselves a lot of the time. And yeah, I'm definitely not like a team
The
politics.
phrase "the left eats itself" exists for a reason, and I hate shitting on one side versus the other. I really do. I'm a pretty middle of the road dude. I love guns. I love I'm not gonna say I love capitalism, but I respect the idea of capitalism. But I also trans rights and women's rights and abortion rights and all this other stuff. I'm very split down the middle between certain things one way versus the other. So
one might say the political binary doesn't serve you very well.
it really doesn't. I hate it. Because
kind
there's
of the
nothing
same.
that fits people like me.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same, Wolf, and I definitely consider myself far left. Maybe not as far as a lot of people, but I'm far left. But
Not as far as me.
I hate the political games. I hate the taking sides and not calling out your own. People want to talk about Trump and Epstein, and then just conveniently ignore that Clinton and Epstein had a fucking relationship as well. So like, if you can't call out your own, and I kind of put that out there in a video earlier, like if you can't look at yourself, how can you look at others? If you can't look at your own team, why would you call out the other team?
Yeah.
I have
Why
a
are we
lot
so
of
worried about
problems with the
looking at the
Democrats.
other team for evil when evil exists in the same camp that you're supporting? We need to be stopping the bad things from happening. The evil, the corruption, the, tearing down human rights and stuff like that. That needs to be stopped on all sides, not just one side versus the other.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, I think the difficult thing is that what I have seen more consistently is that part of the reason people say the left eats itself is because we are willing to call out our own side more often than not.
That is true.
That is
Yeah.
true.
Whereas like on the right, at least here in America specifically, I'm not going to speak worldwide, and I'm not speaking specifically about, say, the alt-right or not. I'm just going to use the term conservative, and by that I'm going to say even just old school style Republicans, not necessarily like the neo-Nazis and all that shit that we're dealing with now. There's always been this sort of united front that you get presented, particularly in right-wing media. They're a lot less likely to call each other out for stuff, at least in public, than the left is.
Oh yeah. Perfect example of that is we threw Al Franken to the wolves for something that we probably shouldn't have.
Agreed.
And Donald Trump is accused of rape and is sitting in the presidency. I mean, there's a huge difference between and yeah, the left does, and that's not the only way the left eats itself, though. I mean, there are regressives, and I would say a lot of the moderate corporate shills put forward a bad image of what the left really is. And then there is
You
that.
can't really be corporate and be like at that level with like PR and whatnot, and be like a leftist at that point.
Yeah,
if that makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, you're not a true leftist at that point. If you're, it's one of the things that we were talking pre-stream because I recently came out in support of Elizabeth Warren, but despite her extensive native policy that she's come up with, studying her donors, I'm not sure I can support that. Like where do your interests lay, Elizabeth Warren? Because you're taking a lot of corporate money, and you're supposed to be a progressive. So I mean, I'm kind of up in the air.
Yeah, what do you really do when you get to that point, Like how do you dig yourself back out of that hole?
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you can, because now you're subject to that.
Exactly.
I mean, there may be a few things you could do.
Say that again, Calvin.
I said there may be a few things you could probably do if you had wealth, like maybe buy a huge parcel of land and try to set up some sort of anarchist society or something like that. But that would be a stretch.
Or use the money to jumpstart programs to help areas that need it, or like we were just talking about with the prison reform system. You could go.
Yeah, that would be progressive more than it would be. Yeah, that would be very progressive.
Yeah, you could go in and undo some of the things that are in place right now.
Well, and this is where, like I brought up earlier, the political binary doesn't serve you very well, Wolf. This is kind of part of the reason that I put that up there was because on Collective View, Cirrus's first script is going to be called Politics Are Non-Binary, and it talks about the political compass. The two-party binary here in the U.S. does not serve... Like, when you talk about left does not equal progressive. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, there's a synonymous because the, Democrats tend to be more on the progressive side when it comes to social justice. But part of that is specifically because we have this political binary. If we had more parties, if we had a more, wide open system where more people would be able to get in from a wider selection of views, you could potentially have, socially progressive, economically conservative people in office. But right now, you have these very hardened party lines where you kind of have to toe one or the other. And it's kind of a problem.
I do want to say within the Democrats right now, there's kind of a split. They have the Justice Democrats on one side, and they have the Corporatist Democrats on the other. Of course, the Justice include people AOC and the rest of the squad, and that are accepting all of this like political money from like the fossil fuel industry, the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay, so was that my net, or did AR kind of glitch out there?
I think it has to do with my OBS. I'm not recording or anything, but as long as I have like the virtual cam going, and I think it might be the cause of it like frame skipping. If I don't have it like tuned up to like 8 frame skips, like that's the buffer, I don't get as good as I
think you look good, but maybe I missed something.
No, Just every once in a while, my screen's going to kind of flicker because of
Oh.
the frame buffering that I have to use in order for this to not have incredible amounts of lag.
Yeah. I really like your background, AR. Like, I'm jealous. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
I'm a
lie.
little jealous too. Not gonna lie.
Thank you.
We'll have to talk. I may have to steal some ideas.
I'm like, I got this stupid air conditioner and my
It wouldn't
atheist
work.
sign.
None of this would be possible without the help of my guy and IFB Jesus. He's the man.
Oh,
He
he is
bought
the
me a
man.
bunch of equipment.
NIFB Jesus is a great supporter of many atheists, and he needs to get the credit for it.
He really does. Can't do it without.
And not
can't-
just
can't-
atheists, I don't think.
None of this would be possible without him. That's all I'm saying.
So, do we want to move on? Do we want to give Carlton a chance to chime in? Like, what would we like to do?
We can
you
let
said that you
Carlton
wanted to
chime in
touch
real
on
quick,
all-
and then we can move on, Allie, and move on to get back more on the Trump and Phil. Phil, live up to the topic.
Well, you said that you kind of wanted to go through each of the 4 topics, so I want to make sure that, given that we're doing a 2-hour tonight, that we have time to cover each of them.
Yeah. So if Carlton wants to add in something real quick, he can. If not, we'll move on to the next topic. I'm good with that. And don't let me moderate, Allie. I'm gonna shut up.
No, we can go ahead and move on.
Okay, so the next topic is racism.
Oh damn.
All right, I've actually got some opinions on this one.
Oh,
yeah.
I know you do. If you want to open up, Wolf, then
Yeah,
feel free.
start us off with this one, Wolf.
All right, so racism is extremely personal to me. As a pagan and as a Norse-specific polytheist, I have to fight racism constantly from my
Fuck
own.
the AFA.
Yeah, the AFA. We have a few other groups out there that they love to think that just because you're white, we could go into. I could talk about this for hours, and I won't. So my point is, I love to call out racism when I see it. I've gotten pretty good at it, and I had to deprogram a lot of stuff in my own mind because my own family, what would seem like harmless banter here and there, I realized was some programming that was, instilled in me, and I had to undo all of that in my own life. And now that I've got kids, and they're coming home, asking questions and asking this and that, and I have to go ahead and start undoing that for them as well. Like, no, that's not the way we think. I don't care what your friends say. We don't do that. That's not what's going to happen in our house.
So, can I ask you, do you feel like there's been a lot of speculation that the administration's kind of outward racist rhetoric and policies and things have emboldened some of these groups to be a bit more vocal? Do you think that that's the case, given that you've worked kind of directly against this stuff?
Absolutely. I don't think that there's a question about it. And anyone who wants to refute that is just trying to stare blind at the wall, because the writing's right there. You can read it. The language that they use, the way that they phrase their sentences, the way that they would phrase their sentences, their official statements that they put out. When he's at rallies, when Trump is at rallies and he's giving his speeches, he loves to use rhetoric that emboldens people to go out and have hate in their hearts for people that don't look like them.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that it's
the dog whistles.
I think that it's designed. I think that he tries to play the middle ground to where he can say I'm not racist, but KKK vote for me.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
the whole
racist.
point of dog whistles, though. It gives
I'm
you
not
this like
racist, but-
field of plausible deniability that
Well, here's the problem,
allows
though,
you to
is
say,
we've
no, I'm not racist, even though that's the whole point.
I feel like we've moved beyond dog whistles at this point. Like, he outright, during the campaign trail, called, immigrants racists. He called them rapists. He said that Mexico wasn't sending their best, implying that Mexico was sending anybody.
Yeah.
So here's a situation I want to bring up. The El Paso shooter that happened.
Mhm.
The person who ran in. Now I already said I'm very pro-gun, but this situation right here is extremely fucked up because the El Paso shooter went in looking for brown people. That's what they said. I was looking for brown people to kill. That's fucked up. So about I want to say 6 weeks earlier, Trump was at a rally, and he said that El Paso is the only place where you could get away with something like that. He's quoted saying that, and I don't have the material right in front of me because I didn't think I would be.
I remember that quote.
But I can find it because I saved it. He specifically said El Paso is the best place to get away with something like that because it's right there on the border, and that's where we can take care of them. Talking about the brown people.
Oh
Yep.
God.
Yeah, I definitely remember that quote.
Not just that. I feel like it's important to I feel like it's important to say that even though in his manifesto he said that Trump wasn't the reason for his shooting, there's evidence to say that that's contrary. Not only what you just brought up, him saying that like the best place to get away with that is in a place like El Paso, but there was a Twitter image that he posted with a bunch of like guns spelling out Trump's name.
Well,
Not only that,
go ahead, Air.
not only that, he used a lot of like Trumpian rhetoric within his manifesto, saying that like these people coming into our country are foreign invaders rather than people that are trying to seek a better lives for themselves. They're asylum seekers. They're not people like coming in to like destroy America. This is a conspiracy theory that they brought up themselves. And
Shane, I wanted to cut in really quick. Carlton, if you want to come into the discussion at any time, like unmute yourself and contribute and stuff, like you're totally welcome to. I don't have to call on you for you to have a turn to speak.
Yeah, please interrupt, man. Don't let us steamroll this conversation at all. Please interrupt us.
We will steamroll it.
Yeah, sorry. My wife was also talking to me, so I'm like having different conversations at the same time.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that you felt welcome coming in since you're a new guest to the channel. Like, I wanted you to know that you are perfectly welcome to come in if you have a point.
Not so new, exactly, Ali. Carlton's been on quite a few times. It's just been a bit of time since he's been on.
Well, it's also been, like, I haven't moderated a discussion that he's in, and if you told me correctly, it was pre-moderation that he was on regularly also.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go ahead, Carlton. I think I have something to add once you're done.
What was the last thing that was said, if you don't mind?
We were talking about racist rhetoric kind of encouraging the El Paso shooter and how the administration has emboldened that sort of thing.
Oof.
Just to repeat, like what I was saying, there was a Twitter image where he aligned all of his guns on the floor in a way that spelled out Trump's name. Even though in his manifesto he says that Trump isn't the reason for this, he did use like a lot of Trumpian rhetoric, like calling the people seeking asylum foreign invaders. He did quote the Great Replacement theory as well as one of the reasons that he did that. I guess that's not completely related to Trump, but Trump dog whistles this conspiracy theory that comes out of like the far right. So
yeah, and real quick, just to interject, if you don't feel like Trump influenced you, you wouldn't put it in your manifesto and make sure people knew that Trump didn't influence you. You know, putting that in that manifesto to me was a big glaring Trump told me to do this shit. But go ahead.
I'm not sure if you heard what Wolf the Red said earlier about Trump saying in one of his rallies that El Paso was one of the best places to get away with this sort of like massacre.
Did not hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which, admittedly, he's wrong.
I just want to point out. A couple people
Did he say he was wrong?
To Google foo the Trump spelling the. I'm sorry, the gun spelling the word Trump. I already did find it. If you Google, what did I Google? If you Google the words Trump sign made of guns El Paso shooter, and then you go to images, you'll find it. Snopes says that it's a mixture of whether or not that's true or false. It looks like maybe he retweeted it. The El Paso shooter's Twitter had the picture on his Twitter, but then it was taken down.
No.
But people are claiming that maybe he just retweeted the image, but he didn't take the picture himself. It's hard.
Even if he retweeted the image, though, exactly. I'm not sure if that really like helps his case at all.
Well, yeah, and I mean,
It says
I'm
here earlier
assuming-
reporting suggested the Twitter account had been deleted after the shooting, but prior to the deletion, that account had included no posts in just one photo, which was the profile picture, and it's not the picture that spelled that. So it's hard to tell exactly what's true or not. But the picture absolutely does exist because I'm looking right at it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and-
again, even if he retweeted it though, that still shows something.
Yeah.
and as I said, like I did read most of that manifesto, if not all of it. He did express some very far right extremist ideals, and like I said,
Wasn't the El
just
Paso
mentioning
shooter,
Trump
was
in
he
that manifesto
eco-fash?
is a red flag.
Say that again, Callan.
Was he eco-fash, the El Paso shooter?
I have no idea what his political leanings were. I just knew that he did it because of Trump.
Yeah,
There
I
were
economic-
there were some eco-fash things in the manifesto.
Yeah.
If you go back and read it, he talks a lot about like overpopulation and not having enough resources to go around, and making sure the right people are there for those resources.
Mhm. And by
Ah.
right people, he means white people. He said that like Mexican people were coming in to steal the jobs.
So it seems that these people tend to that commit these kinds of actions tend to be eco-fascists, at least in the recent case, because also the New Zealand shooter was also an eco-fascist, wasn't he?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, he was. And we can let Carlton jump in now. We all kind of
Sorry,
Over
Carlton.
No, it's fine. You guys were bringing up points that pretty much I was going to bring up too, especially in regards to the eco-fascist aspect of both the El Paso shooter and the Christchurch shooter as well. But something that Shay brought up, which was Trump talking about dog whistles or speaking in dog whistles. I think at this point we can't really call them dog whistles. They're just obvious, like racist things that they're saying. They're no longer
He's not blowing a dog whistle anymore. He's
horns.
blowing an air horn.
yeah. I mean, when he tells the squad to go back to their countries,
Yeah.
that's not a dog whistle at that point.
Not realizing that 3 of them are born in the USA.
right.
Like he's only saying that because they have like different color skin than he does.
Well, that and his constant anti-immigration rhetoric when there's some proof that, like, not only was his wife an immigrant, but that there might have been some interesting things having to do with her paperwork.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, I mean,
That's an unconfirmed thing, but there have been enough stories about it, and some of them were from reputable news sources, that there is at the very least a question around that.
yeah, and it's been a thing since he was running for office. Not, I mean, ever since he started running for office, we've been talking about Melania and her legal status here. I do believe it was a modeling gig that she got her first green card, and that green card, there are questions around it.
Deport Melania. That's a new movement now.
Let's not, Callan. Like, let's not.
All right, but
So, do we have anything more that we want to talk about on the topic of racism? There was actually an interesting sort of
The Muslim
debate.
ban, maybe.
We could talk about that if you'd like, AR.
yeah, go ahead, AR.
Yeah. Basically, he was saying that like all the Muslim people that were trying to escape the things going on in their like own countries were somehow like all terrorists and like didn't deserve to come here to the United States. I mean, like if you're going to escape, it's the whole the border wall situation, just like with a different group of people. These people are like trying to seek asylum, trying to find like a better place for themselves, but because these people have brown skin, he's all like, oh no, they can't be here, these people are terrorists, they're just coming here to terrorize the country and like take jobs. It makes absolutely no sense to me. But
Well,
that's
again, it sort of plays into. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
no, you're good. I was done.
Okay. Again, it plays into the whole great replacement theory, right?
Yep.
Which is that there are these non-Americans, specifically non-whites, coming into this country to overtake everyone, right?
Well, I
So-
mean, part of that theory is also that, birth rates are much higher among, I've heard a Christian version of it saying that, like, Muslims and, non-Christians are, quote, I'm going to use these terms and it's going to hurt my brain, breeding faster than Christians. And then there's the white supremacist versions of it, which
Right.
is the, like, dark-skinned people are breeding faster than white people, and interracial marriage is going to erase white skin from existing. So those are like
Yeah.
the two versions that I'm aware of.
there's so
Can
many.
we hurry up
problems
with this great replacement? Like I'd love for white skin to just go away. Personally,
I'm with you there, Kellen. I can't wait till we're all one flesh. I won't be alive to see it.
Naka, I was cutting off Carlton just to clarify something really quick, so I want to
Yeah,
let Carlton
go ahead.
finish.
No, you were perfectly fine. That's pretty much all I really had to say about that.
By the way, I'm just going to throw this out there. I believe it was 3 Arrows. I'm pretty sure it was 3 Arrows. They have a really good video on the Great Replacement debunking Lauren Southern's video on it. And they go into great detail about how it originated as a Nazi ideology, like literal Nazis, believe in like the 70s or 80s. It goes into detail about how the only way... if immigration rates of Muslims into Europe were to continue up until 2050, they'd only make about 10% of the population. It also goes into great detail about other reasons why, like, it's a completely shit theory and absolutely has no basis in reality. It's a great video. You need to check it out.
It's stupid. It's all based on caliphate rhetoric about how Islam's going to rule the world and they're going to bring all the infidels into Islam and blah 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 blah. Yeah, look at the numbers and stop being stupid.
Yeah, they literally have to twist like the numbers around or like make these like idiotic projections that like assume that like these trends are going to continue the same way for like upwards of like 30-40 years to even like make a claim. It's ridiculous.
Both Carlton and Callan like tried to unmute when we all kind of talked in a clusterfuck, so I want to give both of them a chance to respond before anybody else does.
I think he took my point.
Carlton, do you want to get a chance to respond also?
Well, there was one quick thing that you brought up, Ali, which was about the Christian version of the so-called Great Replacement. That is not, well, I don't think you were implying this, but it's not a new idea. I remember hearing about that, like maybe over 10 years ago in regards to, I don't know how many people's opinions of Aaron Ra are, but when he was at, I think it was some sort of atheist convention in Australia, one of the Christians that was talking to him brought that up about how the Muslims were becoming greater in number and would soon take over every single country, especially the countries in the West, to introduce Sharia and pretty much take away everyone's rights. But it's pretty much the same thing now. I think AR sort of touched on this. Or both AR and Ali, which is that the people on the right have now reshaped this into the whole, well, it's not just about, say, Muslims overtaking Christians. It's now Muslims and others taking over the white people.
Yeah.
And
If I remember correctly, like this originated from a book with the exact same name, The Great Replacement, from the 70s or 80s. I could have my information a little wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that's where it originated from.
I'm fairly certain you're correct, AR.
You're right about that.
The person who has all the facts on this again is 3 Arrows, and you should check out his video on The Great Replacement. It's great. It's like an hour long.
3 Arrows is a fantastic creator. Like, he's so careful and particular about the way he responds to certain things. I've had some things where I've disagreed with him a little bit, and some things where he's messed the history up at least a little. But like, if there's one thing, he's never sloppy.
Yeah.
Real quick, as an aside, I'm sorry, Ali. Aaron, you left Discord and now you want back on Discord. You can come back on Discord, Aaron. I'll send you a link later.
Wow, Noka is allowing you back on Discord.
Okay, so like, can we get we've got 3 mods in the room. Can we get a vote? Is he going into Fundy? Just kidding.
Yes.
So Wolf's like, should I speak? Like, should I do this? Like, do I?
I'm with Wolf. I'm with Wolf. No comment.
And oh man.
Okay. So, like, stuff aside, I do want to say that the Christian version of the Great Replacement that I've seen, one of the biggest proponents, funnily enough, is one of the dudes who works for InfoWars. Imagine my shock. I'm trying to remember his actual freaking name. Like, he's
Paul Joseph Watson.
Paul Joseph Watson. He has a video out there that I actually posted as part of a debate on Discord a while back, where he outright like espouses the Great Replacement, but frames it around Christianity and says that it's bringing down the West. So that was really interesting to see.
Yeah.
By the way,
that'll segue us into radicalization. But go ahead, AR.
you want to?
But I think Infowars is a big part of the radicalization of the right.
I feel like we did talk about radicalization when we were touching up on racism, but I guess there's some more points. I wanted to talk about the mail bomber specifically. But
go ahead.
Back on the point. You know what? Actually, I lost my train of thought. I forgot what I was going to say.
I have that effect on people.
Was it going to be about the Nazi Paul Joseph Watson?
Yeah,
I'm sure it was.
Paul Joseph Watson. I hate that.
Yeah,
dude. I
that was
don't
it.
hate
The
anybody.
dog
But I
whistle.
very much dislike him.
I remembered what it was. It was the destruction of the West. This is also one of those alt-right dog whistles, just like fucking Clown World or like the OK sign. Of course, it really depends on who's saying it and like how exactly they're doing it, but there is some sort of relevance to it being a dog whistle. The destruction of the West is really the supposed genocide or replacement of white people. That's really what they mean when they say the West is being destroyed by like foreign invaders or...
And this is why we need strict immigration policy. We need to build that wall for white
cultural
people.
Marxism, all that kind of bullshit.
Well, and that does give us a really good segue into radicalization, because we did touch on the El Paso shooter, and we touched on kind of the way the current administration's rhetoric has encouraged sort of like radical fringe groups to become more active. So I think that this actually has something a little bit to do with some of the rhetoric around the AFA as far as Wolf and Callan are concerned, but also there are discussions around like groups like the Proud Boys and such on the more Christian side. Radicalization appears to be at an all-time high, both because of the internet and because of the kind of enabling rhetoric. So I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on that. Whoever would like to start, just like raise your hand or something. That way, you know, people don't jump on each other.
Real quick before somebody jumps in, just to put into that group as well, white teenage boys seem to be becoming more radicalized towards the right since Trump came into office.
Yeah, around like
I'm
early
thinking
20s,
of
it seems to be like the biggest demographic that like ends up like committing these like mass shootings and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm referring to, and just the young Republican movement has seemed to have a very large uptake of young white males, and especially the alt-right or alt-right is all young white males pretty much, and to where most of the younger generations are more left-leaning. It does seem the demographics all say that the younger generation is more left-leaning. There is an element of young white male that is being radicalized into this alt-right, if not neo-Nazi mentality.
Well, and I think that there are some interesting theories, and I will like drop it after this, I promise. I'll be back to being good moderator. There is a bit of that has to do with the Gamergate phenomenon. We brought up Infowars as being really key to a lot of this stuff. Infowars was one of the few media outlets that covered Gamergate in a positive light, and because of the sort of harassment movement that Gamergate became, Infowars and certain other, like Breitbart was another one, certain right-leaning publications, because they praised the movement, like helped indoctrinate a lot of these people who were, you know, some of them didn't even realize that they were joining a hate movement to begin with, right? Like they didn't, you know, see a lot of the harassment that was going on of female devs, of, you know, people of color and other things. And so you'd end up getting slowly like dragged deeper and deeper into this horrible groupthink.
Yeah. The groupthink is, I think, the most important element here. But I want other people to jump in.
Groupthink and echo chambers.
They call this the alt-right pipeline.
So I'll go ahead and be the opposing voice here, and I'm probably about to make some people mad. I actually I enjoy. Oh, I've forgotten his name. Alex Jones. I enjoy Alex Jones. I think he's funny. I think he calls out things way ahead of time. I think he's been right a lot of the times when he talks about certain things. Now, I'm not talking about the radicalization. I'm not talking about, the spreading of evil and all that stuff that he does. I agree that he does do that.
The Sandy
And
Hook shooting that he called a
yeah.
hoax.
So with the Sandy Hook stuff, if you
Don't
go
forget
back,
that he Pizzagate, he spread that conspiracy around for a while too, and might have even helped radicalize the guy that shot up the place.
so, but was he wrong? Turns out he was completely right about the entire Pizzagate.
No, Pizzagate was a complete conspiracy.
Yeah, Pizzagate was.
There's not even a basement in there, like a lot of these like Pizzagate people were pushing
Well,
for a long time.
maybe Wolf's referring to like the Epstein thing and the
Yeah.
actual thing
Turn-
behind the
turns out-
scenes. Maybe
turns
not
out
that
there
particular
was
pizza
a
place.
turns out there was a large pedophile ring in the political elite, which is what he was trying to expose.
And let's not forget that Clinton was associated with Epstein. So yeah, to where that particular
So is
pizza
Donald
place-
Trump, though. In
Yeah,
fact,
oh, yeah,
even more
yeah.
intimately
So
than the
nobody's saying
Clinton.
that he's
called
not.
out for it, both of them equally, but I
Yeah.
do think that there is now some kind of legitimacy to Bill Clinton and some form of pedophilia. I mean, until we can prove otherwise, I think we have to assume. How could you not know? Like I've heard that I've read the stories about what was in Epstein's New York apartment. You can't go in that place and not say this dude is fucked up.
Here's the thing with that though, like as much as like we can make these like loose connections, there's no way that we can say with any like concrete proof that like even Trump and I said, he has like a much more intimate connection with Epstein than even the Clintons do.
How what are the odds that we'll actually find out now that Epstein's dead?
That makes me so fucking angry.
Very convenient.
Probably not very
involved. At all. Very convenient for everybody. Everybody.
What I'm trying to say though is it's probably better for us not to say any like concrete statements because there's no concrete
I do
proof for these things. We're going into the realm of like conspiracy
Trump
theory
and ignoring Clinton, and I do think definitely Pizzagate, the pizza place itself, that was bunk. And that was some InfoWars bullshit.
But he was leaning towards.
You go back to the
pedophile
Corey. I mean, how long have the Corys been talking about this sex shit behind the scenes of the powerful? And everybody just passed them off as drug crazed stars that lost their minds. Well, now we know differently. Now
another thing
in retrospect.
Okay, Naka, AR, guys, I'm gonna step on both of you for a sec. Naka, you talked over Wolf. Wolf was trying to make a point. I'm gonna let Wolf go, and then AR, you can jump in.
Go ahead.
Okay.
The other thing that I did want to point out that Alex Jones has done right. He brought up the abortion clinic that was doing what they called post-birth abortions, where they would keep the babies alive for days and days at a time, and then the family could decide whether or not they wanted to abort the baby after it was born, healthy, nothing wrong with it.
Where?
Then they could abort the baby.
Where?
Let me Google.
I remember this story. I remember this story.
I've heard about
There's a video clip of the person admitting it.
Yeah, I remember this story, and I remember not.
Here's the thing, though. Where did it come from?
I don't know what you're talking about.
It came from InfoWars.
No.
Yeah.
No. They found. Hold on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I heard about it on InfoWars, but I could not debunk it. Like, I couldn't find information against this.
This sounds like something very similar to like the Veritas like bullshit, and everybody knows like this guy who runs all the Veritas things is full of shit and knows how to like doctor and
without a doubt,
take people out of context in a way that like makes them look a lot worse than what they actually are, and sometimes even say things that they're not saying in the first place.
Yeah, without a doubt. This was slightly different because
everything that I've heard about like post-birth abortions, and maybe I'm wrong here, has been deemed as a hoax by like most reputable sources. I guess since I have a chance to say this right now, though, I do want to say that like everybody connected to Epstein more than likely had absolutely no connection with the pedophile ring that he was running. People like Lawrence Krauss, for instance. What people don't realize is that Epstein funded a lot of like scientific advancements, and because like
my thing is, did they go to his New York apartment and did they go to his island? If they
Yeah.
went there, they're highly suspect.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But what I'm just trying to say is that like not everybody connected to Epstein is like more than likely
Definitely
a
not.
pedophile. Also,
Definitely not.
also it's best not to say like who is or isn't a pedophile unless we have like concrete evidence to support that claim. I mean, we can speculate as much as we
maybe
want,
not
but
even.
it's
I mean,
better
you don't have
not
to partake to turn a blind eye, and I would say turning a blind eye is just as bad.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree.
But so on Alex Jones, so like I do, because I do remember the story Wolf's talking about, and I tried to debunk it, and I couldn't find information against it. I really couldn't find information for it, but I couldn't find information against it. That being said, like I think that Sandy Hook, pretty much anything that might have been legitimate news from Alex Jones was wiped away with Sandy Hook and Pizzagate in particular, and the gay
Well,
frogs. I mean, let's be honest, the
The
gay
parents
frogs.
of Sandy Hook.
Alex Jones has since gone back and taken back everything that he said about Sandy Hook. He's like, I regret everything I ever said.
But he only did that.
Any of the conspiracy theories that I put forward.
He only did
Only
that.
because he was
He
on
only did that
trial.
because of he was being sued.
Yeah.
I mean,
he never did it until the moment they took him to court.
You can't judge whether or not why he did something.
No, but I do judge the results of it. I do judge the people showing up at the parents' homes and saying that their kids didn't die and they were crisis actors. I do blame Alex Jones for that.
Yeah, if he hadn't put forward those ideas, those people wouldn't have gone there for sure.
Yeah, I just couldn't
Also-
imagine it. Like if I lost my daughter and somebody showed up at my fucking door with that shit, I would break their nose.
Well, if I did a whole bunch of digging and I cannot find anything from like reliable news sources on the story that you were talking about, you'd think that would be everywhere if that were the case.
Yeah.
Look,
That's what they want you to think.
yeah, that would be the argument is, well,
All right.
the
So I think
major powers behind the scenes don't want you to know. Like I said, I couldn't find anything for and I couldn't find anything against Ali.
I think we could all say that the post-birth abortion thing was probably a hoax then. Confidently.
Yeah, it rarely happens from what I'm actually
I don't want to
reading.
say it's a
It
hoax. unless it's
never
for
happens.
sure. Because I don't want to take away legitimate news.
It's against the
if it's
oath that
legitimate.
like doctors have to make.
But I think that if it happened, it was a 1 in a million thing, and Alex Jones got really lucky to find it. But like I said, I couldn't find any major news sources backing up Alex Jones. So I tend to kind of side with AR here. I think that Alex Jones' history kind of goes against him here.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I try to understand.
The only place
I do try to understand. And Alex Jones has been very influential in our society, whether we like it or not. So he is something that we're gonna have to fucking deal with.
Mhm.
for me, it was the gay frogs.
Yeah, the gay frogs. Come on.
So that came out to be a little true too. There were chemicals that turned the frogs gay. There was an article put out about that not too long ago.
Yeah, the whole thing about that though is it like disrupted their ability to change
Right.
sex. Like,
I agree. And then
But then he tried to extrapolate it onto like the rest of the world and say like they're putting this chemical into the air to turn all your friends gay. They're going to make your kids gay. They're going to turn them into transgenders. Like that.
This is the magic of Alex Jones, though. Is
Yeah.
he takes
A kernel of truth in order to like
very small
spread
truth,
conspiracies.
and he turns it into entertainment. Have you guys actually dived into and watched a full episode of InfoWars before?
Oh, I have. It is entertaining. It is like, dude, I would get high and I would laugh my ass off.
And it's there to sell people vitamins. He's literally selling multivitamins and energy drinks to stupid people who believe him.
And his stupid survival pack.
He'll ramble about
Super male vitality.
yeah. He will ramble about demons for 2 hours, and he'll be like, "Well, the only way you can stay fit and fight those demons is to buy my vitamins." And then he'll sell regular ass $1 a bottle multivitamins and mark them up to $85 a bottle. And that's how he makes his money.
That doesn't strike you as predatory in any
Oh,
way?
absolutely. I'm not. Trust me. I'm not here standing up against that practice. That's stupid. However, if you're fucking dumb enough to buy multivitamins for $85 a bottle, maybe you deserve it.
Not to mention,
Yeah,
like, you
I
have to
definitely
remember
agree with
one of
that.
the people pushing this like whole like thing is Paul Joseph Watson is a full-fledged white nationalist / supremacist. There's that too.
Yeah, and I've got to work on my rhetoric when it comes to that because I get so heated and I dislike the guy so much. I'm like, fuck that Nazi, and they're like, people like lose their fucking heads, and I'm like, I know I shouldn't have called him a Nazi. Damn
I
it!
learned the hard way that it isn't right to call people
I know. I'm
Nazis.
trying
You
to take that out of my vocabulary. Unless you're like
within
real Nazi.
discourse.
I only call a person a Nazi when they're a Nazi.
You are
Callan
Callan,
officially
what-
has
your
lung
throat
cancer
cancer
again.
Callan, you have to
Okay, guys, you heard it here first. Callan is a reptile. She's joined our reptile overlords. She is in the middle of her transformation.
Somebody said
speaking
Callan.
out of your stoma.
Somebody said
It's
Callan.
not easy to shed the skin, okay?
I can't deal with that.
That was perfect. All right, Callan, quit and rejoin.
It's the only way we actually hear Callan.
You're right. I could not hear that loud and clear.
Callan is a
It's like that guy
Cylon.
from South Park that's all like,
in my back.
okay,
No.
how's it going,
Callan,
guys?
quit the stream and come back.
Yeah.
It's
All right,
heading
so this
right
is
for
actually
us.
this is actually a pretty good place. Excuse my background sounds. My hubs was kind and brought me a Diet Mountain Dew.
Uh-oh.
So this seems like a pretty good place. Carlton, if you want to come chime in, we've been talking about racism and conspiracy theories and stuff. Do you have anything more to say on the topic of radicalization, conspiracy theories, InfoWars, etc.?
Well, what I was going to say is that it's undeniable that Paul Joseph Watson isn't a Nazi. He's definitely a Nazi. There's no dispute there. He's definitely a Nazi.
At the very least, he's a white supremacist, even if he isn't specifically a neo-Nazi.
I agree with that. Like, I'm not sure Nazi, but definitely white supremacist. Definitely.
Yeah, that's why I did like the slash
Yeah.
thing earlier. White supremacist, white nationalist. I feel like they're close to the same, but kind of different.
I need to
Well,
not
there's different
throw out the
kinds
Nazi
of-
word.
Well, there's different kinds of white supremacists, and that's the problem. Is like some people that are either fresh out of that mindset, or like who are leaning in that direction but belong to a different group or other thing. Would like one of the best ways to make yourself not get taken seriously is just to use the term Nazi as being overly broad. White supremacist is the broad term that encompasses all of those groups. If you're going to call somebody out for that kind of rhetoric, white supremacist is the quote safe one. Anything more specific than that, neo-Nazi, KKK, skinhead, etc., a lot of them are different ideologies to a certain degree. Like, they target different people in particular. They focus their efforts on certain things. Like, they all tend to agree white people are the best, but they agree for different reasons. And they're like, they think different groups of people are the problem. So when you're talking about these conversations, you know, you're going to not get very far if you use a more specific term to deal with a fairly broad issue.
There's definitely an argument to say that he's like a nationalist, though. Like, he's very anti-immigration. He pushes this great replacement conspiracy a lot and thinks that like people coming into the country are gonna like destroy it somehow, even though that's not. We already went over this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think I agree, and this is something that I'm really trying to work on. Because I get really heated in political discussions, and I will start throwing out that Nazi word to try to make a point, and the point gets lost because it's not an accurate point to make. So I personally, this is something that I'm working on and have been for about a month. I've failed a few times.
We can't deny that there are a lot of parallels, but that's
Definitely
where it gets confusing.
All right, so Carlton, do you have any more points that you wanted to make? Wolf, do you, or do we need to move on to the final section in our little
the fun part?
Yeah, the hurricanes, because Naka, you did an interesting video about some of the Baptist rhetoric, so we can come back to
the Baptist
atheist portion of our content. But there's also been some other interesting things surrounding these hurricanes and some weird like headlines and some very bizarre predictions from various churches and Trump wanting to drop the nuke in one. So like, I'll let Carlton like finish up if he's got any other points that he wants to make.
No, we can move on.
All right. Or I guess I'll let Naka, AR, if one of the two of you wants to take it away, I'll let you guys launch because this has some really interesting atheist content behind it.
Yeah, and this will probably take us right up to the end. So hurricanes it's not just the nukes and hurricanes. Let's talk about it all because hurricanes seem to be a very big issue amongst Christians and with the president. And not to mention, let's not forget that about 3 or 4 days ago, he was like, "Oh, fuck Puerto Rico." And now he's like, "Oh, let's nuke a hurricane so it doesn't kill white people in Florida."
Honestly, though, like after everything we talked about, is like fuck Puerto Rico like surprising to anybody?
No, not at all.
Is Callan
I am interested in getting to the nuke conversation, but we can start and others can jump in.
Nakasuchi, is Callan backstage? I think you might need to pull her in.
Oh yeah, I forgot I had to do that. Sorry, Callan. I'm so sorry.
Forgot about me. You forgot the snake. You forgot the pumpkin snake.
Well, StreamYard is new, so having to actually hit that
I'm
plus
just
sign.
It took you saying that for me to finally realize what your profile pic there is, and that's amazing.
A pumpkin
It
snake.
is amazing.
I know. It's
Pumpkin
so relevant to the channel.
And I mean, for what it's worth, as far as insane rhetoric, I mean, Trump was talking about trying to buy, I think it was Greenland or Iceland. So, like,
Thankfully, the Danes have sense.
I loved watching that try to unfold. Watching this businessman try to buy another country with fucking American money.
Well, Greenland's not a country.
yeah, it's not. It's an independently operating.
It's owned by the
Still,
Danes.
You know what? He's trying to absorb another U.S. territory.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny to watch him like flounder this business deal. And then when he got told no, he goes, "All right, well, I'm not coming over to your house then."
There was a really funny tweet. Like he said that when he'd buy fucking I already forgot what it's called. He said that he wouldn't do this to it. And in the picture, it's like a bunch of trash all over the place and then just a random like gold tower.
Yeah.
So anyway, coming back, I guess off of me being distracting, hurricanes and interesting stuff involving Christianity and Trump apparently wanting to drop a nuke into it.
So,
Yeah, I did see an interesting video when it comes to like the religious end of like the hurricane. I saw a bunch of people like praying on the beach to hopefully deflect the hurricane off of Florida.
I'm
not sure if anyone saw that.
When the hurricanes hit, I want to say a couple years ago, they actually got kind of bad towards the Georgia area, which is where I am. And we had all sorts of things. Like we were taking our fans outside and pointing them at the sky. I got my guns out and pointed them threateningly at Hurricane Irma and told her to get the fuck out. And it worked. So you can't tell me
Totally,
that worked.
that correlation worked out perfectly.
It did. It did. So I am now
What's the
affirming my
causation?
decision, and you can't undo it.
Oh god, this whole thing with nuking hurricanes though, like I'm sure the concept of like radiation is like
Well, they almost nuked North Carolina, so
So I wanna take a little bit of responsibility for Trump thinking that nukes and hurricanes will work, because, and this is way too coincidental for it to not be directly my fault. In Ocean's Discord, we had a conversation on July 12th, around like 12 o'clock, about the effects of nuking a hurricane. And I'm just reading off of the Discord chat here that we had. And we were doing like direct math of the amount of energy that a hurricane puts out and the amount of energy that a nuclear device puts out when it's detonated. And we determined that if you took all of the radiation factors out, that theoretically it could work if you dropped 2 or 3 nukes strategically and timed them out a specific way. The energy displacement would stop the hurricane from forming and staying in its, its circular path that it goes.
Callan, your mic.
However, it's impossible to remove the nuclear factor out of that. So you would never be able to.
The radioactive fallout, you mean?
Oh, for sure. It would get wrapped up in the storm, and then as the storm displaced, because the nuke would work, because nuking a hurricane theoretically could work because of the energy displacement. As that energy was displaced, it would just throw nuclear radiation across the planet in a matter of hours and over days. It would be worse than trying to nuke the planet. It would be more efficient to
Trump
nuke
is
a hurricane to cover the planet in radiation.
And some of the worst scenarios back, because they tested this back in the late 50s, early 60s, I believe. Some of the worst scenarios was the complete destruction of the human race.
Yeah,
over a matter of time.
A very, very short period of time. It wouldn't take long at all.
Yeah, it wouldn't take long at all.
Yeah,
I mean, if Ocean or Cirrus were here
on this,
if Ocean or Cirrus were here, we'd get a very interesting discussion on the merits of nuking the entire planet. But like, I don't necessarily think that's a good place to go right now.
I mean, I just brought up Fallout 76, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3. I welcome the Fallout universe coming this way. So if we can go ahead and speed up,
the problem with that though is you have to even get inside a bunker. You know, like none of us will survive it because none of us can afford. Like,
don't have a bunker, AR.
What I'm saying is because of lack of funds, it's probably not good enough. The only people that would be able to afford good enough bunkers are the hyper elite.
No, but see, thanks to Trump's good policies, I've made enough money to buy a really good bunker.
Yeah. Well, we as liberals need to collectively come together and donate to our own bunkers so the right-wing elites don't rule the world after the fallout.
So are you saying we need a GoFundMe for bunkers?
Yes, we need a GoFundMe for liberal bunkers.
I think we should just take the bunkers from the rich.
I mean, I could very sarcastically be like, well, why couldn't Soros just buy us bunkers? But then, like, conspiracy theories might quote mine me.
Then we could also, put the rich in freezers so we could eat them later. That'd be nice.
I'm sorry. I wanted to poke the eyes out of conspiracy theorists.
But, back to a more serious...
Wait, you guys haven't been paid by Soros yet?
What was that, Callan?
I cannot confirm or deny that statement.
I'm not saying that Callan isn't. I'm not saying that Callan is a paid shield. I'm just saying we don't know.
So I think the scariest thing about this is not that Trump thought it would be a good idea to nuke a hurricane, because honestly, like, Trump's kind of dumb, and honestly, to a dumb person, that would probably seem appealing. Hey, I might be able to solve hurricanes. Oh my God, that we've only had nuclear weapons for 50 years.
Okay, Trump's kind of dumb. Trump thinks that that by moving as little as physically possible, he's going to prolong his life because he thinks that everybody only has a certain number of heartbeats in them. So exercise somehow kills you faster.
Yeah, so the scary thing isn't even really that Trump thought up this idea.
Okay, guys, Wolf was trying to come in too.
Sorry, go ahead, Wolf.
I'm just being an asshole. I said I used to think that when I was 7.
But no, like, the scary thing isn't Trump.
Like a Chinese hoax. Like, the reason why we're having all of these, like, extreme, like, weather patterns, like these Category 5 hurricanes, like sometimes multiple a year, is because of climate change. But without think that, like, it's some sort of Chinese hoax in order for them to gain, like, economic power.
Have a good one, Carlton.
Later, Carlton. Everybody say bye.
What's weird about that is, like, it implies that, like, all the climate.
Also, I think Callan's backstage again.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Oh, there we go.
Go ahead, Aaron.
The funny thing about, like, that whole conspiracy theory he cocked up is it implies that, like, the climate scientists, like, within the United States and in Europe are somehow paid by China.
Well, yeah, and they've been predicting this since,
you guys aren't paid by China?
Global warming and not climate change. This, like, back in the Al Gore days, they were predicting that hurricanes would increase in intensity.
No, I'm paid by George Soros. We've been through this.
Well, how do you get that Soros money?
Oh, wait, sorry. I take that comment back.
AR broker contract. The Sorosian army is going to come to her doorstep, and she will have her memories erased.
Money here.
Uh oh. I'm in deep shit, guys.
Like, I do this shit for free at this point, yo.
Oh my God! Look at this huge check by Soros I just got. It's amazing. I'm sorry, what?
Well, since the cat's out of the bag, I guess I can say who.
Naka, I'm just going to preemptively apologize that your channel might get taken down tonight because of live assassinations. Like, people are about to like die. We're going to hear their death throes. Like, you're going to lose your monetization. I am so sorry.
Yeah, I know. Like, why did I listen to y'all telling me to go politics and shit? You know,
Because you got to get that George Soros
This
money.
check
I know. I'm
huge.
trying. I'm applying for that
I
Soros
can
money
eat. I
right
can
now.
now eat for a few months now. I'm
Well,
sorry.
Naka,
what?
your application just got denied. You said something on air. Like, you got to deny that statement. You got to
No,
make sure it's only in Minecraft. You fucked up. Everybody here fucked up. We are all screwed.
Well,
Huh?
it's time to switch sides. Where's that? Project Veritas money?
Well, I mean, there's only one Koch brother left to fund you, so you better move.
Oh,
Oh my god! You pulled that out of your ass so quickly.
Thank you. I was pretty proud of
that
that.
was good. Oh.
Anyway, so let's try to get back on topic, even though I totally just fed that particular beast.
What I was trying to say is the scary thing isn't Trump thinking up this idea. The scary thing is the smart people around him saying, "Okay, we'll look into that, Mr. President," and not saying, "Mr. President, don't be an idiot."
That's what he hired them to do. He hired a bunch of yes men who aren't allowed to directly disagree with him. They're told to at least explore every idea that he throws out there. It doesn't matter how ridiculous, they have to go look into it for him and then come back to him with undeniable proof that whatever crazy idea he has isn't going to work.
Well, and here's the thing, though, is like when you talked about the special prosecutor and you talked about like the head of the Department of Justice, don't you guys remember all of the like oaths and purity testing and all the shit that came up as a result of that? Like,
Yeah.
It's obviously clear that he has very much created a cabinet of people who are loyal to him over the state. Which,
He's
whatever
made
your
these
opinions
people-
are about the state, like, the state is still, you're there to serve the state, you're there to serve the people, and, like, if he considers himself to be the state, we're step off of dictatorship.
Yeah, he's quite literally told like these people that are still within his office to swear their allegiance to him.
Yeah,
Like, there's records
makes
of
him
this.
sign
I'm
that
not
shit.
pulling it out of my ass.
He is actually suing people now for breaking that agreement. Omarosa is one of them.
Oh god. Not just that though, like anybody that's like what's it called? Challenged him in any sort of like reasonable way within like the White House has been fired.
Yeah. Anybody that challenged him, Mattis. What's the first Secretary of State we had? Rex Tillerson. I despise the guy because he's fossil fuels, right? Like he worked for ExxonMobil for like ever. Facilitated a deal with Russia for ExxonMobil and then became Secretary of State and tried to institute that deal and failed miserably, and thankfully for that. But as much as I despise him, he was one of the few people that would stand up against Trump.
I forgot who he fired because he didn't like disrupt the special counsel against him.
So I do kind of want to bring things back because we've been dogging on Trump for a while. But Naka, you did a really interesting video on Ben the Baptist, and at least half of us here I know have seen it. So I wanted you to kind of expand a little bit on some of the stuff you said in there and like talk about that for anybody who hasn't seen the video yet, and maybe we can all kind of have a little bit of fun because I think this sort of apocalyptic mindset among Christians regarding particularly the whole idea of, well, you know, like you should be more afraid of hell than you should be of dying in this life and things of that nature. I think that that's actually a really interesting topic of discussion, and I think it's very much in line with what some of the atheist folks in your audience are interested in hearing from us.
Yeah,
I do.
Aaron Benton's in the comment section now, and he was in full agreement with Ben the Baptist. But go ahead real quick, AR.
There's something I just want to clarify very quick. And by the way, thank you, Jared Whitaker, for like mentioning his names. I mean, his name, I guess, whatever. Jeff Sessions was the person that was fired because he was disrupting the investigation against Trump.
Keeper Elf.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Jeff Sessions did recuse himself. Like, so for at least you can at least give him some tiny inkling, itty bitty little bit of respect there. I mean, he got fired literally because he tried to do his job.
It is the only thing I've ever respected Jeff Sessions for. I only think he did it because he understands the law and realized that it would be the end of his career completely if he didn't. Now all he has to do is wait out Trump and he can still have a career. Or I think that he probably wouldn't have. But still, despite that, fuck Jeff Sessions and his racist ass, everything that he
Oh,
did.
I completely fucking agree. I was just saying, like, I give him that tiny infinitesimal piece of respect that despite having all of that overbearing pressure and being publicly smeared by the man holding the highest office,
Yeah.
he stayed recused. And
He
like
deserved-
that
and
took
he-
some fucking backbone.
And he deserves that respect because, he stayed recused and he did not fire Mueller.
How does that statement go? Like a broken clock is even right twice a day?
Yeah, basically that's what I'm saying. I
That's
wanted to
Jeff
give
Sessions.
that tiny little benefit of the doubt. Let's bring a little bit of positivity before we start smashing on Christians. All right.
All right, so so we'll get into the Ben the Baptist for anybody in the audience that's not familiar with my recent response to Ben the Baptist. Ben the Baptist is a person that has come out and said that Christians should fear going to hell and not hurricanes, and quite literally in the video says that it's stupid pretty much to prepare for hurricanes because you shouldn't fear death. I mean, not in those words, I'm paraphrasing. And
Don't take your life-saving heart medication because
Yeah.
like you shouldn't be afraid of hell.
he literally calls out people going and getting water and food and stocking up because in hurricanes you lose power and you need shit. It's kind of what you need to survive if you actually survive the actual storm, if you're going to try to wait it out. So this whole mentality, and Aaron was in quite agreement. There was almost 100 comments arguing with Aaron in the comment section of this video. That
Do you want to pull Aaron Benson on for this, or do you think we don't have enough time for that?
probably not enough time, but I will
We've
invite
got about a
him
half
to
an hour
Discord,
left.
for after. So I will do probably an hour and a half in Discord after if anybody wants to come and join and talk about this.
Are we doing a recorded or unrecorded
No,
episode?
it'll be unrecorded. It'll be unrecorded.
Okay.
But this mentality that Christians have. So one, you have a certain element of Christianity saying that hurricanes are created to wipe out the gay populations of America.
I think we should be a little bit specific here. Certain extremist factions of Christianity have this attitude.
Yes.
Because there are a number
would be one of the major ones.
Yeah, there's a number of Christian churches that don't talk this way, but so we should probably be specific when we're discussing this.
So, and that's what I'm saying. One element of Christianity talks about hurricanes in that manner. Like God is creating these hurricanes to come wreak destruction on America for accepting LGBTQ rights. And then
For
another
what it's worth,
element,
by the way, I have a story related to that, and I don't want to lose it. So can I?
Yeah, go for it, Ali. Go for it.
So I lived in
That's the first time I talked to
Nebraska.
me anyway.
I lived in Nebraska a number of years ago, and we actually had a major tornado that came through. It touched down in Omaha, or at least it started to. It looked like it was going to do some serious havoc. It basically broke a Walmart, lifted up, crossed the river, and dropped on Iowa. And I believe this was either the year of or the year after Iowa had legalized gay marriage. It was around the time of things like Prop 8 over in Cali and that sort of thing. And there were actual headlines at some of the local newspapers talking about how the tornado that had dropped on, I want to say that it dropped a little bit outside of, you crossed the bridge and I'm trying to remember the city you end up into, Council Bluffs. It dropped just a little bit outside of Council Bluffs, and people were saying, oh, Iowa's being punished for legalizing gay marriage. And that kind of thing was legit in some of those small local newspapers in the neighborhood that I lived in. So, this sort of thing is very much natural disasters as punishing for immoral things for a country. That is rhetoric that does get passed around. All right, go ahead, Knock. I didn't mean to cut you off. It was just I wanted to tell that story because it's one that I've held back for a while.
No, it's perfectly fine. That's I wish I actually would have caught it, but as everybody saw, I had to kiss my daughter goodnight.
TLDR, when I lived in Nebraska, there was a tornado that fucked up a Walmart, picked itself up, crossed the river, dropped on Iowa, and there were headlines in local Nebraska newspapers saying that the tornado destroyed parts of Iowa as, excuse me, that's what I get for drinking soda on stream. They did that, that God was doing that specifically to punish them for legalizing gay marriage because they'd done it either that year or the year before.
Yeah, and that's this element of extreme Christianity that thinks that God doesn't care about the collateral damage, and you know, and I've spoken to people about this directly about hurricanes and targeting God. A lot of people that I know in North Carolina believe this type of shit. So it's not just like, you know, I would consider these people extremists, but it's not just the Westboro Baptist Church. There's an element of Christianity that believes this type of mentality, and they will literally say that you know it's worth the collateral damage because we're being punished for our acceptance of this perversion, and exact words, right? So it's
Which
very
is a really
disturbing
interesting.
because they literally think that God is willing to kill Christians to punish us for LGBTQ plus peoples that God created. I mean, it's very disturbing. And then there's another element of hurricane worship, but I'll let you go ahead real quick, Allie.
I was just going to say it's a really interesting application of the Old Testament to a God that supposedly made a covenant that he wouldn't do that shit anymore to his so-called chosen people. Like a lot of these people will, you know, talk about, well, the New Testament changed a lot of other things. They'll justify why things like animal sacrifices are no longer necessary, why certain laws, you know, no longer exist. But then they'll turn around and be like, well, Christians are now, you know, in the place of the Jews. They're God's chosen people. And so we are going to get punished in Christian states and and it's like you don't get to slice your cake both ways, bro.
Oh yeah, and they try. Brother Jay just recently pretty much in my video today on Brother Jay, he conflates Christianity and Jews, and I'm like, I literally asked a question. I'm like, does Brother Jay realize that Jews don't believe in Jesus? Because it doesn't seem like he does. You know, like it's very aggravating because you can't even reach these people. There's no telling them that hurricanes form for a reason, and that hurricanes are getting worse because of climate change, because of human impact on this world. You can't tell them that because it's God, right? It's God punishing us because over the last 30, 40 years, and if you're racist, it goes longer than that. It goes over the last 50 or 60 years since we allowed black people to have rights. But now it's mainly centered around homosexuals and LGBTQ plus peoples and America's embrace of secularism. And we're being punished for that. And these hurricanes are getting worse because we're getting worse as a nation by accepting it. This is a very extremist Christian view. And I'll let other people chime in, and then we'll get into the other hurricane worship, which Ben the Baptist spoke of recently.
Hurricane worship?
That's what I'm calling it because all Christians seem to be fucking focused on hurricanes.
I got a little distracted in some previous Twitter drama. I apologize.
No.
At least all the angry fundamentalist Christians are particularly fixated on this.
Yeah.
They're just like, let's throw all the hats in the ring. There's no ring left. There's only a gigantic pile of hats.
I'm just so confused by Christian theology.
Like,
I don't. How can nobody be?
Hey, we
like,
all agreed that we weren't going to talk too deep about theology today because we don't want to
There-
open up that can of worms in the chat again.
there was a huge
and we only got 15 minutes left, so we're winding down.
there was a huge contradiction in something that he said, though, wasn't there? Like, people don't have any right to like fear death because they're going to go to heaven anyway as long as they're true believers. But then again, he's like, well, some people, even Christians, still have that innate like self-preservation within their nature, and like that's totally normal. Like, could you pick a side, please, man? Just don't.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, he was speaking very mockingly when he said that, though. He was like, "Oh, that's totally natural, but you need to overcome it."
Yeah. And I find it very dangerous. So that's the other element of hurricane worship is now Christians seem to be like, you shouldn't be afraid of hurricanes, right?
Drink the
Like you
Kool-Aid,
should
guys.
fear hell. You should fear God. You should put that energy into your fear of God. And I find that very dangerous. I think that he's literally telling Christians not to take hurricanes too seriously because they believe in God and God's going to take care of them. You will die if you don't take precaution in a major hurricane. I have been through Hugo. I have seen it lift up an oak tree and slam it into my best friend's house. I've seen him have to move and get a new house because of it. I mean, these things are very dangerous and they're unpredictable and you don't know what's going to happen. If you stay in your home, there's a very good chance that you will die unless you have a basement. If you have a basement, get down there. And the fact that he's telling Christians that they shouldn't fear hurricanes, that they should or he's not even really talking to Christians because he only considers the NIFB the real Christians. Let's be honest. He's talking to everybody else that's not in the NIFB.
Oh yeah, you did a video on him burning Bibles, didn't you?
That was Shelley, but it's same movement, same NIFB bullshit. It's hard to tell them apart sometimes because just hate looks the same.
Yeah, I mean, it all sounds the same. Like, they all basically sound like the same milquetoast, boring ass shit.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, though, because it is a very fascinating form of grooming to tell somebody, don't be afraid of a literal natural disaster storm that you may have had. If you live in one of the areas affected, you may have had past experience with a house getting wrecked or losing a loved one, or at the very least losing a fuck of a lot of money, because, like, let's face it, if you live in Tornado Alley or you live in hurricane areas, like, you're gonna get hit at some point. So, like, you probably know somebody who has. Like, being told to fear this very, very real thing, even if you have the most incredibly deep, devout faith in your God and in the afterlife, that doesn't mean you don't necessarily want to prolong this one to a certain extent.
Yeah, and my challenge to Ben the Baptist and Aaron, who was commenting in the comment section, was, well, go out and walk into a fucking tornado then, or walk into a hurricane. You know, like,
You see, that would be suicide, and
Yeah,
suicide is a sin and will send you directly to hell. So you can't do that. You have to
but-
let it happen if it happens.
I mean, if you don't fear a tornado, so when we were young and dumb, the rare times that a tornado would roll into North Carolina, we would actually drive to the coast while everybody else was driving back. And you had to go super early because traffic was a bitch, even trying to get in. And we would go and we called them hurricane parties, and we watched the hurricane roll in, and then we get into our secure place and get fucked up. And we're very lucky to see the next day because we were stupid. You know, go do that. Just go do it. Seriously. But that could be a bad idea too, because if you actually look at a hurricane rolling in, it's going to be hard not to see the awesomeness of the God that they believe in, because those things are very fucking powerful. And it is a life experience that you won't soon forget. And
climate change is making them stronger. Like, we had to create a whole new classification for hurricanes because of climate change. I want to let Wolf and Callan get a chance to jump in here, since Wolf's been AFK for a little while.
Yeah, please do.
What have I missed so far?
We're talking about, like, this sort of like the Ben the Baptist video that he put up recently, this idea that Christians should be more afraid of hell than they are of dying in hurricanes, and the kind of cult programming that comes in with that. And since there's 3 polytheists here and we all have a very, very different worldview on the afterlife and this sort of thing, I thought it'd be interesting to get our opinion on this. Naka's calling it hurricane worship. Like, he also talks about, we also touched on briefly the idea that hurricanes and tornadoes are natural disasters sent to punish humanity, which doesn't necessarily jive with the worldview of most polytheists either, per se. So, again, I thought it'd be interesting to get the 3 of our perspective on that as well, since, you know, you guys were kind of AFK for a bit.
Man.
I'm in the show.
Go ahead, John.
I find the theology just really, like, confusing. Is their God just a sadist? I mean, I don't see why those Christians should be so much against BDSM if they're worshiping a God who's punishing.
Chasing people with whips is totally a thing that goes under the category of what would Jesus do.
Yeah.
I mean, he did get whipped and nailed to a cross, didn't he?
Yeah, but he also chased around the Pharisees with whips because they were selling shit at the gates of the temple.
And there are some sects of extremist Catholics that actually whip themselves to emulate Jesus.
Oh, okay. So it's a BDSM religion?
Will Kincaid is trying to start shit in the chat. He thinks we're not doing anything by talking about these things.
Okay, guys, like, let's not engage the chat. We don't want to feed the trolls. If they want to come start a fight with us in the after show, like, let's go have a fight with them there. I'd like to keep the discussion on topic.
Unrecorded after show.
Was Will kicked off of or banned again from your server? Because he got banned on my server for telling an asexual person to get over it by taking date rape drugs.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Oh, shit, that was him? Nah, fuck this guy.
Yeah, I left before I could ban him. Like, Will, like,
all
seriously,
right.
you're an idiot. But yeah, let's get back on track.
Yeah. Sorry, I just realized I did exactly the opposite of what Leah guy told me. I'm still really
Okay,
pissed
so-
off at that. I'm sorry.
Okay, so Wolf, would you like to comment on that as well, since Callan got her chance?
So, the hurricane worship is definitely a thing. The idea that Christians
Silence.
welcome anything and everything that's thrown into their
Wilfer, we
life.
can't hear you. Or I
Oh.
can't.
I hear him.
I hear him too.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Callan, that's on you. You might want to disconnect and reconnect.
Okay.
Oh,
So, yeah, the idea that Christians will welcome almost with open arms every fucking awful thing that happens to them because it's God's will is a dangerous brainwashing tool. The fact that you are supposed to just bend over and take every wrong thing that happens to you, that not only are you supposed to be okay with it, but that you're supposed to support it. You're supposed to support all of the awful things that happen to you
Be
because
grateful for your challenges because from them you will grow.
exactly. So, yeah, it's just it blows my mind a little bit. I'm going to be honest. I don't understand it.
So
Yeah,
do you
neither
have
do
any
I.
comment on like the fear of hell thing versus fear of hurricanes? Like
So
again,
the fear-
sort of like a semi-polytheistic perspective on this, since again there's three of us.
So the fear of hell, I could do a little bit of a dive into that. The fear of hell is the whole reason Christianity exists. If you didn't have the fear of an eternal afterlife where you are tortured forever, there is no stopping, there is no way to get out of it. If you aren't afraid of that, you're not going to worry about Christianity. You're not going to try to live up to this perfect being and try to always grovel on your knees and all these things that Christians do to try to make themselves worthy of going to heaven. They don't care about heaven, they're just afraid of hell. And that's how every single Christian ends up in church, is because they are terrified of ending up in the torture zone for all eternity. That's all they care about. I promise you, the main thing that people worry about, if you ask any Christian and they're honest, a lot of them aren't, go figure, it will be that they are worried about hell.
Well,
I
and like,
agree.
let's face it, any of us who converted out of that faith, like, let's get a show of hands here. Any of us that converted out of that faith, how many of you, for the first time, for the first, say, couple months, maybe even the first couple of years, either had nightmares about hell or had moments where you were terrified or had doubts? Like, even with the scientific evidence that may have pulled you out, or whatever experience that you had with another deity, in the case of, other polytheists and things like that, like,
I still
how
have.
many of us didn't have those fears?
I'm 20 years out of my Christianity, and I still have latent Christian thoughts all the time about.
Like Christianity is a poison.
Yeah, am I
about
wrong?
brainwashing
Am I going to hell? I still have those thoughts.
I had that fear for years after I finally came out of Christianity. I even have friends now that I still talk to that have outright nightmares about hell almost regularly. It's like it leaves a form of PTSD on you. It's
I fucked
fucking
up and read Inferno, dude. I mean, I have these images in my brain of hell that I'll never get rid of.
So I had a little bit different experience getting myself out of Christianity, and it was because I realized that I would never live up to what was asked of me to get into heaven. So I knew that no matter what I
Concept
did,
hell is just weird to me.
yeah, no matter what I did, I would end up in hell. So
Oh,
I
Wolfer
figured,
said-
why not? Why fear it if it's inevitable? That's kind of where I went to, even as a young person. Like in my early teens, I just said, "Fuck it, I guess I'm going to hell."
Yeah, and Wolf,
Here's
when it comes to your religion now, because I am somewhat familiar with Nordic lore, and especially when it comes to their afterworld. So you had Valhalla, which was where your warriors went, and they were with their ancestors and the great halls, and then you had the other place, which was ruled by Hel or Hela. I can't remember her quite her name, But it
Yeah.
wasn't like a
say
place
how.
of punishment. It was just a place where you went to rest and you
So,
know.
so I've actually got some opinions on Valhalla. Valhalla is the warriors' afterlife, where Odin and Freya. Freya gets first choice, and she chooses half of the
Callan,
fallen
your
slain.
mic.
She chooses half of the fallen slain, and then the other half Odin gets the leftovers. Basically, it's it's actually really cool. The woman gets first choice, and the man has to pick up the leftovers. But so the warriors go, they train all day, they fight, they die in battle in afterlife, and then they are resurrected at the end of the battle. And it's all training for Ragnarok. Odin is preparing his forces for Ragnarok. And at the end of the day, he resurrects the troops. They all go back and eat and drink themselves into a stupor, and they fall asleep. And then the next day, they start all over again. And they do this for eternity until Ragnarok comes, and then they fight in the Battle of Ragnarok. The other afterlife, there are many afterlives, but the afterlife that I am worried about specifically, the one that I ascribe to, is called Helheim, or just Hell, Hel, one L. And it is supposed to be a beautiful place, fertile fields, rolling green hills, plenty of farmland. You get to build a house. Your entire ancestral line is there waiting on you. Even people you don't even know are there waiting for you. They already know about you, they know about your deeds, and they are there welcoming you with open arms to start this new homestead. And you get to basically live a second, it's almost like reincarnation, but into a safer, nicer place where things are plentiful and everything is just kind of okay. And you get to work for your homestead, you get to build your house, you get to farm your land, take care of your animals, take care of your family, raise your family again. And it's just supposed to be this wonderful place, which honestly, in my opinion, sounds way better than servitude to a deity who thinks you're already unworthy to begin with forever.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a whole other stream that I'm going to have soon is Christian afterlife and what does heaven actually mean. I think that's going to be a really good conversation in the future. But yeah, I've always been and me and Ocean talked about this a while back. I've always been fascinated with Nordic lore. Something about it has always drawn me to it, and I've always just kind of read the stories and just been fascinated with it because yeah, their versions of the afterlife I would say are much preferable to Christian versions by far. Even heaven.
Yeah, heaven sounds great.
And I'm not an atheist that actually. I don't completely dismiss the afterlife. I think that there could be something. I don't think that it's been proven either way, and I would love to see my fucking peoples again. So I'm not an atheist that really goes hard at an afterlife. I do go hard at the Christian afterlife because I can't see a God that supposedly loves us throwing us to burn in hell forever. And it is one of the stories from my Christianity that still terrifies the fuck out of me. And I don't think I'll ever get over that shit. But I won't be one of those foxhole atheists, you Christians out there. Never.
I'm just going to take this moment to say that Bionic Dance is one of my favorite atheist YouTube content creators.
I have been meaning to watch Bionic Dance. I've never actually watched her actual content. I've watched some of the live streams she's been in, but I've never actually watched her content. I've been meaning to do that.
All right, so we have actually hit the end of the 2 hours that we had planned because we were a little bit late. This would be the time when I'd normally start having everybody do their sign-offs, plug your channels, that sort of thing. But I would like to give everybody one more opportunity to discuss if you guys wanted to talk about the hurricanes or you wanted to put any final thoughts for any of the topics. This would be the time to do it since we've got about another 7 minutes, and then after that I'm going to have everybody sign off. So does anybody else have anything they want to bring up?
One last aside, fuck Trump.
No. If you deny Trump's racism, not only are you wrong, but you're also implicit in the spread of it.
But and also, in all seriousness, too, though, let's try to not correcting all Trump supporters as ignorant or racist. I do it. I think a lot of leftists do it. Let's start trying to reach them again. It's fucking almost impossible, but unless we try, we'll never do it.
I work in. I've mentioned it earlier. I work in a factory setting.
Yeah,
I
Trump has
work
brought
with
us closer to the revolution, and if this trend continues, well, there might be
Thank
some
you, Cal.
unrest.
You accidentally like.
Yeah, you came over Wolf with some revolution shit, and it was funny.
Hey,
Oh,
I
whoops.
love Callan, so she can speak over me whenever she's ready. It's all good. But yeah, I work with a bunch of people who are heavy on the right. They are conservatives. They are religious Christian, almost damn near Trump worshippers. But so many times we start talking about stuff, I get them to admit he's not perfect. He has flaws. He is hurting people, including them. Their future children their children's children could be impacted by the decisions that Trump is making now. And I feel like I personally have seen, a good handful of people open their eyes a little bit more to the things that are not so great about the guy.
Yeah, I think more and more are starting to every day.
Well, and as far as a comment on the afterlife as a whole, there's a very interesting conceptualization of the afterlife within Hellenism. It evolved and changed over time, but for the most part, you end up kind of in one of three places. You either end up in one of the Wailing Rivers because you were an absolute POS, and this is like with your life being weighed over the entirety of it, right? So this is like everything that you've done. If you were like say a genocidal maniac or something, you'll probably end up in the River of Pain, and you're going to get, run over by Karen as he's taking his souls to the other two destinations. The second is the Asphodel Meadows, which, are considered to be a place of basically utter neutrality. Early versions of it talk about the dead being robbed of their agency. Later versions of it talk about the dead being basically the way they were in life, effectively. Like you kind of have to work a bit to get the things you want, but it's not absolutely awful. And then you have the Fields of Elysium, which themselves come with the Blessed Isles, and those are for people who did a heck of a lot of good in their life. Started off as only the greatest heroes could get in. Later on, as more understanding was reached, it became people who kept their oaths and their piety to the gods, and people who were good in their lives get to go to this place where they never have to toil. Like, you can plunk down a house, it's beautiful, it's soft, it's calm. If you get all the way to the Blessed Isles, you get to hang out with some of the deities. So it's not a negative afterlife for the most part. Like, you don't have some hell because you didn't believe. Like, the only reason that you'd get punished is because you were a shitbag.
Yeah, I have studied that lore a little bit, not as much as I've studied Nordic lore, but I know definitely in the future, if I could make time, Ali, I'd really like to start learning more about that as well.
Well, some people think that the Asphodel Meadows, that the concept of purgatory may have originated with them.
Yeah, I've always been just fast. I think it might have been one of the things that actually led me outside of Christianity was just fascination with other gods, and that even spills into like fantasy novels.
Jared
I read
Whittaker.
all books, but for some reason, fantasy novels appeal to me, and I think it's the interpretation of gods in fantasy novels that have always really appealed to me the most.
To answer a quick question for Jared Whittaker, generally, most Hellenists consider Tartarus to be where the Titans were stuck. So it's like the underworld that's underneath the underworld, where all of those pre-Titan monsters and like the Titans themselves, Cronus is the king. It's not necessarily an afterlife.
Yeah, I know. This Wednesday, John is having a really good stream about Nordic lore. Callan's going to be a part of it. Digital Hammurabi, Dr. Misha Griffin, and her husband. And I feel terrible because I can never remember his name. But he's brilliant as well. It should be a really good conversation, I think. But I want to have more conversations moving forward about the difference, just your guys's interpretations of what I have read. Like I would really like to hear some of the stories that I've read of Nordic mythology, and get Wolf's and Oceans and Nordic polytheists versions and their views on it, but also like you, Ali, like or even Callan, because I've studied a little bit of the Sumerian gods. to see how it might be a bit different from what I think. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's perfectly fair. And like, I think it would be really interesting if we did, if I could find some more Hellenists that are hanging out in the YouTube sphere, to have a conversation like that on Hellenism or on, some of the other Reconstructionist faith. Like, I'm sure that Chris, for example, would love to come on for a discussion of Semitic religions, like
Yeah.
outside of
Yeah, I need to get Chris
Judaism.
back on. It's been a minute.
So I would like to start wrapping things up a little bit. We can continue this into the after show if people are still interested in that particular topic. But I would like to give everybody a chance to do closing statements. And because we've had a couple people leave and come back, the order has changed. So I guess from my right, AR, final thoughts, plug your channel, all that happy stuff.
All right. Well, I feel like I covered like my final thoughts already. I'll just shell out my channel then. Need to be honest, first of all, there's probably going to be a bit of a channel like direction change. Sorry, I wasn't getting the words right. I'm still going to be calling out like hate and bigotry as like I see it coming, but I might just be doing more like vlog type stuff in the near future. With that being said, though, like you can find me at The Atheist Rationale here on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitter at The Atheist R. Yeah, come check out my live streams. It should be a fun time.
All right.
I'm so bad
Callan.
at chilling myself.
Chill yourself harder, AR. Your pumpkin posse.
I'll do it.
Real quick. So somebody's asking if somebody can send Will a Discord invite for the after show. I'm gonna give my
there's a Discord
panelists some
invite in
input on
there.
I want y'all to have some input on this. So
Part
there's
2
a
of the
Discord link
Pumpkin
in it.
Saga is coming soon.
Last time-
Will
to come
already
back.
said that he doesn't have time for us tonight. He already bitched out.
If you
Yeah.
spread medical woo, it's a hard ban, in my opinion.
yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. Like what he said on AR's server, I just don't know if I really want that kind of shit coming back into mine when things have.
Well, I
calmed
mean,
down
we
a
have
little
we have a fundy corner for that though. Like,
Yeah,
if he,
yeah,
if he
he
pulls
can
that
go
shit
in
in our
fundies.
server, he can go into the fundy corner.
Yeah.
I mean, we did explicitly say the fundy corner is for like hardcore fundamentalist Christians who don't follow the rules, atheo fundies, and even people like fundamentalist like pagans, the AFA, certain other
Mhm.
organizations, that kind of thing. If you break the rules, in terms of like shilling out stuff as opposed to using slurs, you can go in the fundy corner. People can choose whether to deal with that shit or not.
I just don't get it though. Like,
that is true.
I just don't get it though. Like, who the fuck tells like somebody who's like on the A spectrum to get over it by taking fucking GHB?
Okay, AR, that's
Yeah,
drama. We can bring that into the server if we want to. Let's not do it on a
Yeah.
stream.
Yeah, but I agree, AR. It was fucked up. So yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. But yeah, we can finish with the channel. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kind of sidetrack. I just didn't want to be like, let's bring in Will and
Bad Naka.
yeah, yes. So
Well,
I'm
we'll
gonna
have a private mod meeting on it if he does decide he wants to come in. How about that?
yeah. I think it should be a mod meeting, definitely.
All right, Callan, it's your turn.
Trump is helping us with the revolution aspect in a way that that kind of don't wish he had it, and hopefully some harm reduction will come about on the next election cycle, and we'll get rid of him.
Chill our
Sure.
channel, Callan, because you're kind of the co-host.
I thought. Okay, yes, and also come follow us on Polyology, where we have a ton of discussing pagan things, paganing around, and doing other pagan stuff.
Yeah, we've had a couple of really great recent conversations. We talked about 2 weeks ago. We did a stream on common fundamentalist arguments that we get from both atheists and Christians, and kind of how we as a group respond to them. That was one of the first streams that Wolf ever came on to. We also recently did one on divination and things to expect when getting involved with divination. All right, Wolf, your turn.
So I'm Wolf the Red. You can find me on Discord pretty much any hour of the day. Good luck finding me not lurking the channels. I'm in AR server. I'm in Callan server, Noka server. I'm in Ocean server. Good luck getting in that. And I'm pretty much all over.
You're
I
a
enjoy
co-host on
talking to people.
Polyology now too.
I just recently accepted the gracious position of co-host on Polyology, and I'm looking forward to making content there. And I actually spent the weekend hanging out with Ocean himself. We went to Dragon Con together, and he has convinced me to start my own YouTube channel discussing
Oh,
heathenry,
sweet.
heathenry in a family setting and dealing with personal one-on-one situations where most everybody else is discussing theology and philosophy. I want to discuss real moments that happen within the family home and in real life as a heathen and as a polytheist. And I think that I could bring a lot to that table. So,
You
I'm
know,
looking
and
forward
we would love for you to do a series on that, honestly. Like, that would be amazing.
Fun.
We've been talking about doing one on Hellenism for very similar things, like, you know, ritual praxis, but also the way that a family would operate.
Oh,
I'm
I'm so looking forward to that, dude.
I'm a pretty big man's man, but I also reject toxic masculinity pretty hard. And so while I love guns and have a big beard and work in a factory and drive trucks and motorcycles, I've raised two daughters to be empowered and respect themselves and not let men walk over them. And then I also have a son on the way who is due January 22nd, and so I feel like I could bring
Congrats.
to the table there. So
Yeah, congratulations.
appreciate it.
All right, so I
Congrats.
usually go last before I turn things back over to our gracious host. So I'm Malia Kai. I'm the head of, technically I'm an organizer / co-host for two different channels. I'm the head of Collective U, which our animators have just moved past the storyboarding stage for our two newest members. Gaelic Knox and Permello actually just joined us. Gaelic Knox from Cirrus's particular channel as his main artist, and Carmelo is if you don't get a chance to check her out, like, you're missing out. Her artwork is freaking amazing. I'm so grateful that she joined. So our content has accelerated in speed quite a bit because we now have two far more experienced animators on the staff. Also Polyology, as I mentioned before, which Wolf, Callan, and I are all on. I'm currently working on a series on Hellenism and like ritual praxis, basic theology, and also like disagreements within the community and the kinds of IRL situations where, say, an ethical system may apply. So we've got some great stuff coming down the pipeline for both of those channels. If you guys get a chance to check them out, you won't be disappointed. We are in the process of changing direction a little bit on Polyology, and there will be some new announcements coming pretty soon. All right, with that, I will turn things back over to Little Bear himself.
Awesome. I mean, I'm really excited for Polyology. Yeah, I would definitely get those links into the description. I'm terrible with my links. Everybody knows this. I'm trying to get better, but I suck. But it's only 2 links today, so that should be fairly easy. Really looking forward to your channel, Red. I am looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a very interesting perspective, and I'm going to promote the hell out of it once you start it. So,
Appreciate it, man. We'll have to talk as dad to dad. You know what I mean?
yeah. But yeah, you guys know who I am. So come join Discord. We'll have a civil discussion, and unrecorded, so it'll be completely in private. And yeah, join us there. I'll be there until about midnight, and then I have to go to bed because it's actually my daughter's first day at school tomorrow.
Hey, Naka, do you want to do one last clarification about, like the last recorded after show, you had given blanket permission for things. So we want to make sure that we clarify about this one and all future after shows, who has permission to record and where, etc.
Yeah. Thank you, because I was going to totally forget. So yeah, I made a mistake the last time and the first time that I recorded Discord, and I left the conversation having a lot of fun and kind of adrenaline rushing through me because we were just bashing on Sky Out, and who doesn't love that? But I made a mistake and said that anybody can record my Discord. No, please don't. I'm the only one that's going to record my Discord, and it's going to be in very controlled circumstances. So please don't do that. That's not allowed, and that will be in the rules of my Discord server. So let me do the recording, and that is only in a certain chat room for recorded after shows. Tonight will not be. So please do not record Discord.
And that's why I did not hit the record button.
Well, and for what it's worth, we've also implemented a very specific role for people who are interested in being in the recorded after shows. So you can't accidentally end up in a recording. And if somebody does post a recording from Discord, it is unauthorized. It is against the rules. And you do
Yes.
need to let us know so that we can do something about it.
Yes, we need to
Because
get
the
that taken down.
recordatorium, like there's specific rules about it. It is a specific single channel, and you have to have the record me role in order to be able to access it.
Yeah, and that will be very rare instances when we actually record Discord. I want Discord to be a place that you want to come to. And if I'm sharing it with everybody all the time, then what good is that? So if you want to be part of Discord, come to Discord and be part of these after shows. And every once in a while, we'll record them. But it's not going to be often because I don't need that much content. I pump out content like a motherfucker. I don't need that much.
Well, and we're also shifting the channel a little bit, right? Like you've been talking about doing a lot more of your shorter content, which I've noticed has been pretty dang popular. People seem to really like it.
Yeah, and I'm starting to actually grow again. So the algorithm is getting used to me again. It's what always grew my channel. I enjoy doing these live streams. I love these conversations. These conversations are for me as much as they are for everybody else. But what I do best is make videos talking shit. And I'm going to just try to really aim that talking shit in more positive directions.
All right,
People
so
that deserve it. Like
one last clarification. A couple of people have been asking about how to get out of the Fundy Center if you end up there, or what can get you in there. Given that Callan and I kind of both were part of how this came to be, it's actually modeled on the Chud chats from Lefty servers. Basically, if you end up in there, it means you did one of three things. Number one, you continue to proselytize or to make extremely hateful statements against particular groups after you were warned and told not to, or you continued to argue about it. Number two, you claimed religion was a mental illness or used mental illness language and continued to do so after being, ruled by Ahmad. Or three, you have insulted people repeatedly on one of those two fronts, and again, after being warned by Ahmad, did not stop. So, the way you get out of the Fundy Center is the first time you issue a full apology for the thing you did wrong. And then after that, you get a first warning tag and you get a rehabilitation tag. When you come back into the server, if you fuck up again, you're going to be in there for a minimum of a month. All right? So that is how you get out of the Fundy Center. We actually have 2 people who have been rehabilitated who have been taken out of the Fundy Center. So it is possible you can get out.
Hell yeah. And it's been great. And right now there's nobody in there. So, I mean, it's not like we're looking to throw you in a Fundy Center. If you come in being a jackass, well, you wake up tomorrow and you're in the Funny Center. It was because you were a jackass.
Yeah. Honestly, it shouldn't be that hard not to be a dick.
So Iron Charioteer, if you want to post something in there, tag one of the mods or something else. We'll go ahead and take a look at it. But if you're stuck in the Funny Center, that's how you get out.
Oh, I forgot.
And if you break the rules again, then you're going to get stuck back in the Funny Center for a minimum of a month.
Yeah, Iron, we'll get you out of there. But yeah, just be chill. I mean, just be chill and damn, I forgot that Iron was in there. I didn't think we had anybody still in there. So yeah, we'll get you out of there, dude. It's a bit different now too. I mean, we're changing and learning. I mean, my server is so brand new. And we had a lot of drama because I'm an anti-theist that was like, fuck it, I don't want to be an anti-theist anymore. So shit's leveling out. What we're trying to avoid is drama. I don't want drama. I just want to have a civil discourse, and I want to be able to talk to people, and I want people to be able to come and talk to me that haven't been able to before. So, that's pretty much just the whole aim of this thing.
Well, and for the worst,
is mainly for people like Will Kincaid and Sky Out,
people who break the rules. I mean, for what it's worth, you don't just get thrown into the Fundy Center for making a mistake. Mods are going to call you out. We are going to talk to you about it. If you argue with us and you try to start more shit, or you keep doing it, or you try to press the line or a whole bunch of other shit, that's what's going to get you thrown in the Fundy Center. But if you do something that is against the rules and we warn you not to do it again, and you say you're sorry and you don't do it again, then you're cool. And there's been a couple of people who have done that too. So the Fundy Center is really for people who do a lot of extreme stuff and who aren't willing to stop. That's the whole reason it exists.
Yeah, it's really for extreme circumstances. So, don't be afraid to come to Discord. I mean, you're not going to get thrown into fundies for. All you really have to do is just not come in and be a dick. And if I can do it, anybody can.
All right. So Iron Charioteer, if you post that in the Funny Center in either of the I'm trying to remember what they're actually called, the support groups. then I'll cap it, put it into our records, and we'll move you out of there. But just remember, don't do it again. All right?
Yeah, I mean, we can be highly critical of each other. It's just, once you start tossing around that delusional thing or mental instabilities, you're really speaking to a person's personality that we can have no idea about. And these things shouldn't be taken lightly. Mental illness is not something to take lightly, and it's not something to toss around. Just because people are religious doesn't mean they're delusional or mentally ill. Let's have serious, critical conversations. That's what I'm all about. That's what I'm trying to be about now. I know I wasn't always like that because I was a dick, and I'm trying not to be a dick no more.
That translates to don't be ableist.
So on that note, I think it's about time to go sign off and head to the after show.
I'm a filthy SJW.
Later, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night, guys. Great conversation.
that's
Thank you
me.
guys so much. We will see you in the after show.
I'm the filthy SJW. No.
I have